everyone. The sky is pretty beautiful right here as we drive down I-91. So we're going south right now. But this video is going to talk about anyone who's interested in investing in land in northern New England. Not specifically just northern New England, but these are the laws I will be talking about. I know that you can do this even in places like Massachusetts or New York, which are known for having very high taxes. So that's why we'll talk about this. I do know someone in my family personally who owns a lot of land in Massachusetts, which is known for high taxes, and they barely pay any taxes because of such laws. So, in northern New England, if you're talking about buying a large amount of property, either using it as a camp or living on it, let me talk about some of these laws. So I thought totally different things just a couple years ago, but once I found out certain laws for logging companies that my boss told me about, people that live out there in the woods, there are lots of legal loopholes to not paying much taxes in Maine, and it has to do with preserving wildlife and preserving forest. Maine has more forest cover than any other state. Maine has about 89% forest cover across the state. Most states don't even come close. I think New Hampshire and Vermont would be very close seconds for the percentage of forest cover. So, the first thing I want to talk about is if you own a lot of land in Maine and choose to build a house on it, that could be one of your worst decisions ever. So I recently was able to convince the logging company, after years of asking them and rejection, finally came to a deal with them of extending my property. A lot of people think I own a lot of property, but in fact I only own a couple of acres. I have used the woods surrounding me without anyone really caring. But now we have had a deal with the logging company where they would let me buy basically whatever I want for $200 an acre. I bought a good amount where I was able to get a mortgage on the property for the next 10 years. I'll probably be able to pay it off in less than 10 years, but I did the 10-year mortgage, so no matter my financial situation, I should be able to make those payments no problem in the future up to 10 years. So the deal I came with the logging company is I do not own the timber rights until 2036. They're going to log it one more time, whether it's next year or in 10 years, they're going to log it one more time, and that is beneficial to the environment. When the logging company clear cuts, they oftentimes will replant a monoculture, which means every tree is exactly the same. They're planted very close together for maximum profit off the land, and if you don't log it, they're going to overcrowd and kill themselves off anyways. So they will clear cut it one more time and not replant. The forest will replant itself with diversity in the environment. So that will be more healthy. In 2036, that property's timber rights will automatically go back to me, and I can manage it as a logging company if I choose to. I also have the interest of maybe making it into a campground when I'm older and might want to have more, be more close to people if I want to maintain it as that. In my area, campground permits and the liability you need to hold to own something like that is actually very cheap. I could buy $1 million of insurance for only a couple hundred a year. I could also get a campground permit for only about $100 per year. There's different tiers of owning a campground. It can be a wilderness campsite which has no facilities whatsoever, meaning you're going to have signage at bare minimum telling people you have to bury your waste and cover it. You can't just be pooping in the woods. It's unsanitary, especially at a campsite where someone's going to be there all the time just rotating who it is. There's also a different tier where you'd provide a certain amount of outhouses per campground ratio. You could also have running toilets and running water, running shower facilities, which would have random health inspections by the state to make sure you are being sanitary. Those are all routes I might go to in the future if I wanted to do that. But as things are now, that property that I purchased at that low price is going to be gated off by me and posted by me, so I don't have to have the liability of someone doing something stupid and me being held responsible. Having no trespassing signs in my area means there has to be a sign every 400 feet, but I will probably do double that minimum, so there is no chance that anyone getting hurt on my property has even the slightest chance of going after me for doing something illegal. That's the way it is this day and age. My thoughts of the wilderness were completely different just 5 years ago, but theft, vandalism, graffiti has gone rampant in the Maine Northwoods in the past 5 years since I have started filming up there. So for that reason, my thoughts have completely changed. So as far as taxes, owning a lot of land in the wilderness can be very cheap under forest growth laws. So in the Maine Northwoods, if you have 100 acres of property, you're going to probably pay about $90 a year in taxes for that under forest growth. Or you can also put it underneath protected wetlands or protected animal wilderness. There's different tiers of that, which all have about 90 cents per acre in taxes per year. Pretty good. With forest growth, your forest growth survey is good for about 10 years, and you can renew it as long as nothing has changed for the rest of your life. That means you are essentially locking in that low tax rate for the rest of your life, as long as the purpose of your property never changes. If the purpose of your property changes in year 1, you will stay under that tax law for the next 10 years. The next time the forest rangers come around to do a survey of your land and they find out you're doing something other than tree growth, your taxes are going to change accordingly. And that's why you want to make sure your land is subdivided properly. So that same land in forestry, if I bought, per se, 100 acres of land, I said the way I'm doing things, that would be about $90 a year. Let's say that was residential. Now that changes everything. If I built a house on 100 acres of land, you're now going to be suddenly paying tens of thousands of dollars to have 100 acres of land be residential, which is insane. That is why my boss has taught me the secret of that. Where your dwelling is, you will have 1 acre subdivided as residential. With a house on that, you're going to probably pay about $2,000 depending on the square footage of that structure for that land. The rest of it will be a separate tax map altogether as forest growth. Don't build a house on 100 acres of land. Subdivide it to 99 acres of land under forest growth and 1 acre as residential. The rest of that forest land, you can cut it down. You can have cows roaming it. It doesn't actually have to be forest land. You just cannot have permanent structures on it, basically. A shipping container does not count as a permanent structure. You could now make it into a maple syrup farm. You can tap all your maple trees. You can have temporary structures for boiling and containing it, such as shipping containers or sheds that can be moved with a skid. That does not count as a permanent structure. When forest rangers come out to do their next survey, if they find out, hey, you built a barn, that's a permanent structure, they're going to have to reevaluate. You might have to have more land become residential or even agricultural at that point. Forest growth, logging, is a crop. It is a farm, but it is not considered agricultural. It is forestry, which has the lowest tier of taxes. So that is how you do things in the wilderness, if anyone has any interest in buying land. It doesn't actually matter what state. I'm just citing northern New England's laws. I know southern New England, even New York, they're known for taxes, but they have these similar laws. Just take out the bare minimum for your dwelling as a subdivision, and the rest of it, just keep it in forestry. It doesn't matter where you live, similar laws exist anywhere. Even in the most highly taxed states, you can do stuff like this, which is pretty cool that I learned that. The property that I have is intended to stay as wildlife land. The reason I also got it for $200 an acre is because 2/3 of it are pretty much useless. They do log it in the winter when their machines won't get stuck, everything's frozen. But still, it's not really worth much. But now that I have transferred it into protected wetland on top of everything, that does not improve the taxes at all, but it also prevents them from ever taking it through eminent domain. It makes it so difficult to ever build anything on those 2/3 of the property that it's just simply not worth it to even go through any of that. But it threw a whole different bunch of loopholes to anyone trying to take that property potentially decades down the road through eminent domain. It messes up everything, because even if they did manage to take protected wetland, the way that works is you can build on protected wetland, but you have to move it, essentially. If I want to build on protected wetland, you need lots of dump trucks to fill it in, make it high enough the water table where it's not going to affect anything. But you have to move that wetland somewhere else and create or preserve it somewhere else. That's what the law essentially says, which makes it not worth it to anyone in the future. It's very easy to make a swamp protected. It's very difficult, I should say, to take those protections away. Those protections for that wetland will not go into effect because I do not own the timber rights. It won't go into effect for another 10 years. That being said, a third of that property is still not protected wetland, and I might consider making it into a campground when I get older. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. So whenever they log it, I might just maintain certain parts of their clear cuts and just keep it maintained enough that when it does grow back, probably by 2040, it would be set up actually perfect for a campground. Whether I want to actually be part of the campground and run it as such is to be determined, if I even want to go that route, or if I want to just have a pay station, really not visit it much. It all depends on how people behave, to be honest with you. In my eyes, the world is getting worse and worse every single year as far as crime and how people behave. In my opinion, there are less good people every single year. That's just what I have been seeing over the years, unfortunately. We will reconsider this sort of stuff in like a decade. As of now, I could actually build whatever I want right now. I just do not own the timber rights. Now, what that means is I cannot commercially log it. If I wanted, I could cut down a couple acres of trees to do personal things with, but I just can't do anything commercially for the next 10 years. In 10 years, I could even subdivide it if I was desperate for money. But now it is a fairly cheap investment that I think I can maybe pay off in the next 5 years. Some people think that I'm a millionaire off of YouTube, but no, I still did need to get a mortgage for this property. Most of my earnings actually go towards fuel. This year was my biggest travel year ever. We filmed in parts as far as Alaska. We also filmed, no, actually that was December, but we were all the way down in Florida. This year we filmed in Kentucky all the way down to Louisiana. Gas ain't cheap for those extremely far away videos. I see people all the time saying, why are you using such cheap gear? I cheap out on certain things, not everything. But I do what I need to be able to travel and provide these videos, and that's why I've also been looking into becoming a truck driver for additional income, because I'm already traveling 80,000 miles a year. Usually I only travel 40, 50, but this was an unusually high amount of travel year because we were in an extreme drought. I have had recent videos I've been posting of our usual unclogging locations, and they're dried up, they're bone dry. Beavers just can't build. But we will be documenting beavers, and for once, beavers are not going to be angry. In fact, this property has swamp. I encourage beavers to fully flood it and do whatever they want, and I'll document them without removing their dams. I already have like half a dozen cameras up at active beaver dams and lodges. I want to get some cool footage on my own property, and that's what I've always wanted to do. Can't believe I finally got this to go through after 3 rejections from this logging company, but they finally agreed to sell it because they're like, you know what, we're going to log this in a couple of years, and we're going to be retired or dead by the time this would ever be usable again to us in the 2060s for logging. So why not? You're going to do good stuff for the environment with this. You're changing it to environmental law, so you're clearly not going to sell it to a developer because you're making it into protected wetland. All right, go ahead and do it. Because the logging company knows developers are the enemy. Somebody will buy a piece of land, build dozens of houses on it, sell it real quick for a big profit, but they see I have no plans of doing that, so that helped with their decision. It will remain wilderness property for the foreseeable future, and that'll be nice. So take advantage of those environmental loopholes if you're interested in buying land pretty much anywhere. Make sure you have it classified as forest growth. In northern New England, you must have at least 12 acres of land to qualify for forest growth. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day. Something I would love to add to this video, and it's not super duper expensive, but for anyone who has land that's rural, that might have gated roads, in the middle of nowhere, there's always going to be thieves of opportunity. In the middle of nowhere, there's no cameras, someone might not drive by for days at a time. It is perfect for a criminal to mess with your heavy equipment, mess with your property, graffiti your property. I know that me personally, I've had locks cut off my gates, so what do you do about this? Personally, I'll put 3 gates up, one in front of another, making it where they have to take so much time, it's just not worth it. Don't buy an expensive gate. Someone's going to cut the lock. Buy a bunch of cheap gates, one after another, and that will make it where people aren't going to keep breaking your stuff. That has actually worked really well for me. And they don't even have to be gates. Put cables across the road. They're cheap. Put a bunch of cables, one after another, across the road. And if someone's going to have to take that extra time cutting that, they're probably not going to come in. But new technology. They have license plate cameras now. If the license plate is covered in mud, covered in snow, it's not looking for the numbers on your plate. It is looking for the metal indent of your plate, kind of like an x-ray. Unless there's a piece of metal blocking that plate or it's just outright missing altogether, you're gonna get it on camera. License plate cameras cost a few $100s. Hide them way up in your tree. They usually come black or white. I would recommend covering the lens up, covering the microphone, covering the speaker. That's two-way usually on those machines. Spray paint it, multicolors of green and brown. Make it blend in, put it up in your tree. The new ones are cellular. They can run off a phone plan for about $30 a year. Pretty cool technology. And they have cloud storage. If someone decides to take their shotgun out, shoot it out of the tree, it's not being recorded on site. The footage of that person will be recorded to the cloud, and hopefully you can use that to protect your property. I know my personal license plate camera has come in handy twice and has resulted in 2 convictions. Someone came onto my property, they came in, I noticed some ruts in my gravel, decided to check my camera. They backed their hitch right up into a car on my property and took off. If they would have just apologized to me personally, because I was sleeping at home when this happened, I wouldn't have cared. Damage was very minor to an older car. But because they took off, we got them charged with hit and run and trespassing because my road clearly has no trespassing signs. The only people who are allowed down my road are like UPS drivers and stuff. They're not trespassing, they're meant to be there. And look at this moron right here trying to pass. You had warning a mile in advance that this lane was ending. I can't stand dumb people. You know, the other day, I had the Subaru in front of me going slow, and I thought they were about to be nice and let me pass. So they moved over into the breakdown lane, no blinker or anything. I started going around them, and they returned to the lane, pushing me over the yellow line. Oh, I would have stayed on that person 100% if I had a dash camera. But with no proof, you can't do a thing if you don't have it on camera. It's your word against theirs. That's why I recommend dash cameras. I don't currently have a dash camera here in my older car, but I should probably get one.